Hello, 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 and welcome to the Good Gay News Podcast. It's the first episode ever. I'm not sure how the format's going to go yet. Still kind of working that out, but we will see. This is going to be available on playback for anybody. But yeah, the Gay Good News Podcast. It's a funny title. I wasn't sure what I was going to call it, so we settled on that. We have a few topics today, and I will go as long as the topics take. And this will be available on playback for everyone. So if you want to watch it, you can once it's done. Also, it's going to be available on other streaming platforms for podcasts. I'm still working out the details on that, but I will let everybody know when that's available. We have Pista, I hope I have that right, in the house. Hello. And the Growly Bear is here. How are you doing? All right, so let me see. I have my show notes over here. I wanted to do an intro and have all this fun stuff, and I just ran out of time today to do that. So by the next broadcast, we should have that available. So hopefully all that's done by then. And why am I getting pop-ups on my screen over here? All right, so this is the first episode. We're going to work through the kinks together. And although this is like the Gay Good News Podcast, we're going to cover all kinds of topics. But we'll try to end on a high note. So we're going to strap in for that. Let's talk about our first topic today, and that is Pixar's new film, Elemental, which isn't doing well at the box office. It's struggled since the pandemic because I believe Disney's made the mistake of generating this vibe that people can just wait for Pixar movies to come to Disney Plus. And that's what a lot of people are doing. Like if you're a big family and you see a Pixar movie that you're interested in, you can just wait. You can wait now until Disney Plus, and you don't have to spend a bunch of money to take your entire family. You can invite your friends over. If you have like nieces and nephews and brothers and sisters, everybody can come over and watch these movies together, which is saving people a lot of money. Now, I don't know how to fix that problem. Maybe delay the release of the Pixar movies for Disney Plus. I have no clue, but either way, it's been an issue. But something interesting about this movie is for Pixar is it includes a non-binary character named Lake Ripple. Now, here's the story here. It goes, in a heartwarming tale of love, duty, family, and finding that we have more in common than what sets us apart. Elemental is set in a city inhabited by water, fire, air, and land. A fiery young woman named Ember and a more go-with-the-flow guy, Wade, discover something elemental during the course of the film, according to the official synopsis. Which, by the way, I'm hearing that the people that went to see the movie say that the promos for the movie don't really explain what the story actually is, and so it makes it a little difficult in terms of advertising. I think Pixar in general, they need to go back to the table with Disney and figure out like what's happening, what's going on with this, because clearly something is not resonating. And yeah, hold on, there we go. Extra audio popping up there. Okay, it says here that there is a character, Hauser's character, Lake, is Wade's younger sibling. And although they aren't a major protagonist in the story, their presence is a major win for non-binary representation. So they have a non-binary character. And yeah, it's kind of interesting, I think, for the film. Again, not a major character, but, you know, it says here, non-binary characters are still in short supply on the big screen, and non-binary actors, including Emma Corrin, The Last of Us star Bella Ramsey, and House of the Dragons Emma D'Arcy, have previously spoken out against gendered categories at a major Hollywood's awards ceremony. There was also some drama. We're not going to talk about it here, but there was some drama surrounding, I think, Jamila Jamil making a comment about like gendered categories. I need to read more about that. I didn't have time to read the entire article and all the statements before the stream. So I will go back and read that. I'll probably do a separate video on that anyway. Like Lake Ripple, a Ben and Jerry's flavor. Yeah. Hell's Bell said it's still not in the UK, but I'll be seeing it as soon as it is. Hey, Robert Blake, how are you doing? I hope the movie does a little bit better. I do believe that Disney and Pixar have made mistakes in the way they're releasing films. And even with great stories and good movies under their belt, they need to fix the issues. They need to find something that works so that when we do have massive progress, like including a non-binary character in the first Pixar movie, that it's in a movie that gets a lot of visibility. Because I think the big issue is that there's just, I don't know, it feels almost hopeless, right? That they just don't promote these movies properly. And the box office is stacked. That's another issue right now. The box office is so full of options at the moment. Like if you were to go to the box office this upcoming weekend, there's probably a half dozen movies to choose from, depending on where you go. There's a half dozen movies to choose from. And so you have to pick the ones that you think is worth putting your money into. And there's just too many choices. This month, the month of June and going into July, we just have a lot of options out there. And putting out, like, this movie would be a direct competitor to Across the Spider-Verse. It's animated and it's a family film. So it's meant for you to bring like your entire family to. And you're up against a movie that's doing really, really well, which Across the Spider-Verse is, which, by the way, I think that movie's going to, if not already, cross the $500 million threshold. So when you have options like this, it's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to go see something that you're not too sure about? Or are you going to go take your family to something that everybody is excited to talk about? And I think that's what's going to happen. Not to mention we have like Guardians of the Galaxy is still in theaters some places. Fast X is still in the theaters. Little Mermaid is still out there floating around in theaters. We have the Flash movie out in theaters. There's so many things out right now that I feel like we're at a place where people are going to be very finicky about where they spend their money. Repeat viewings are going to go to movies that people are loving and talking about, which we're seeing that with like Across the Spider-Verse. So, you know, it's good news we have a non-binary character. It sucks that it's in a film that's just not performing. It's not performing as well as it could, and that's unfortunate. But hey, you know, we'll do what we do with that. All right, what do we have up next? What's next in my notes? Okay, so not good news. It seems there's a smear campaign that is breaking through with some of the bigots out there, and this was a story that I saw pop up, and I was kind of shocked. It says most Republican voters now believe same-sex relationships are immoral, study finds. Now, the reason why this shocked me is not because the fact that it doesn't seem like it's impossible for this to happen, because it was like this before, and then the tide shifted, and now this is going on. And the study is being done, and basically what we're getting at here is that all of this rhetoric on the internet, whether it be on Twitter, whether it be on YouTube, whether it be on TikTok, wherever it is finally starting to cross over. And this is like worst case scenario, because this is something my channel and many other people that do content like mine have talked about, is that you can't just ignore the trolling. You can't ignore it, because eventually some of it will break through the cracks. And in this article, it goes down here and says that only 41% of Republicans say same-sex relationships are morally acceptable. And this was published on Friday. The number marks a drop of 15 percent points from 2022, when a majority of Republicans, 56%, thought that same-sex relationships were morally acceptable, which is really weird. How do you go backwards? How do you go backwards in that? That's my question. What changed? How was it 56% people were like, hey, we're good with this, to now changing their minds about it after we've seen that there's no negative results from just letting people live their lives? I feel like this has to be, at least from what I'm seeing in the research that I've done, this has to be a direct result of the online rhetoric. And, you know, this poll comes directly after a state of emergency was declared for LGBTQ plus people in the U.S. by the Human Rights Campaign due to laws banning gender-affirming care, drag, and trans people playing sports on the correct team, which correct is, you know, we'll get to that eventually. For the first time in the organization's history, HRC explained it was declaring a state of emergency on 6th of June following an unprecedented and dangerous spike in anti-LGBTQ plus legislative assaults sweeping state houses this year. So I feel like that's got a lot to do with this. It's got a ton to do with it. And we just have to keep fighting. This is not news for me. Anybody who has been around as a gay person or a queer person in general since the 90s will know that this is not the first time this has happened. All of the fighting, all of the representation, all of the work that has been done is not for nothing. They're trying to make it feel that way, but it is not for nothing, right? We did not do all of this for just, you know, going backwards. And I want to remind everybody that progress is not a straight line. Historically, it's always been hills and valleys. But in the end, regardless of those struggles, we always gain ground through fighting back against these measures. Okay. want to remind everyone that conservative groups, including America Principles Project and America First Legal, also collectively spent at least $50 million airing anti-trans ads in 25 states in the 2022 election, according to the Human Rights Campaign. And politicians from Georgia to Arizona ran on anti-LGBTQ platforms. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis handily won re-election last year after signing and promoting the bill's first parental rights and education bill, a piece of legislation critics dubbed as Don't Say Gay bill. But campaigning on anti-trans policies has not helped every candidate. Drag critic Carrie Lake lost in Arizona. She can't give up. She keeps trying. Carrie Lake just will not give up on it because the grift is too strong. The money coming in is too strong. Herschel Walker lost in Georgia after running a platform to ban trans women from women's sports. And Janet Protaskowitz, hope I got that right, defeated a conservative challenger for a spot on the Wisconsin Supreme Court, even after America Principles Project PAC spent nearly $800 million to defeat her with anti-trans ads. The thing is, these issues aren't resonating with everyone. We have some real serious issues out there in this country that need to be addressed, and focusing on fake culture war isn't going to be enough for the majority of conservatives. Look at their platform. After Roe v. Wade, there's been a huge shift in what they're running on. I've yet to see any major talking points on these policies other than culture war nonsense. This is why they're trying so hard to nail it in and use it as a platform. But there is good news on the horizon. Here we go. It says here, Trump judge blocks Indiana trans ban, citing irreparable harm to trans kids. A Trump-appointed judge has blocked an Indiana law banning gender-affirming care for transgender youth. The judge rules that such a ban is likely unconstitutional and harms trans kids. We go down here. We're going to continue reading. Late Friday afternoon, Judge Patrick Hanlon, a Trump-appointed federal judge, issued a temporary restraining order halting Indiana's ban on gender-affirming care for transgender youth. The ruling fully blocked the enforcement of the law, with Hanlon determining that it likely violates the constitutional rights of equal protection under law. I've been saying this for a while. A lot of these bans, a lot of these restrictions are unconstitutional. Hanlon pointedly stated that these bans unfairly discriminate against trans youth and that denying them necessary care could cause irreparable harm. Then to go down here, it says, in essence, the discriminatory nature of the law is evident. Not only does it forbid treatment designed to support transgender youth in their transition to a sex different from their assigned birth sex, conversely, it permits the same treatments when used to maintain alignment with their birth sex. To put it plainly, if a cisgender boy experiences gynecomastia, he can access treatment for reduction. However, this option is denied to transgender boys. Similarly, a cisgender girl can get medical assistance to suppress excessive testosterone, but transgender girls are prohibited from the same treatment. These biased regulations are wholly founded on sex, leading to the judge unequivocally ruled that sex-based classifications are just not present in SEA 480's prohibitions. They're determinative. So basically unconstitutional. They are unconstitutional measures. And I've been saying this for a really long time, that once these things actually get up to the point where the government is looking at them, they're going to go, what does the law say? What does the law say? And the good news doesn't stop there. On top of that, we have the Arkansas, Alabama, and obviously the misgendering laws in Indiana, all blocked. They're all blocked. The sports ban in West Virginia has been blocked. And the drag ban in Tennessee has been blocked based on free speech. These are free speech issues when it comes to drag. All right. I want you to understand here that these are not like free speech doesn't go one direction. It goes both directions. Tennessee's drag ban has been blocked. A federal judge ruled on Friday that Tennessee law banning drag shows in public or where children could see them was unconstitutional, deeming it both vague and substantially overbroad. Not only did the measure violate the First Amendment, U.S. District Court Judge Thomas L. Parker wrote in his decision, but lawmakers passed it for the impermissible purpose of chilling constitutional protected free speech. Period. And this is great news because this sets a precedent for the rest of the country. So a lot of these drag bans that are being placed and put into effect or proposed in bills are all going to be looked at and scrutinized the same way that this one in Tennessee was, which is one that completely overreached. You cannot overlook the First Amendment in this country. You cannot do it. It is there for a reason. You can't say, I want my free speech, but I want other people to be suppressed. There's already laws in the books for indecency. Those laws already exist. If drag queens had been breaking those laws, they would have already been arrested and they would have already been locked up. That's just the reality of it. But the truth is they were not doing any of that. None of those laws were being broken. None of those things were being violated. So they wanted to create a separate, redundant set of rules specifically for queer art. That's not going to hold up in court. It's just not going to hold up in court. The First Amendment protects this kind of stuff. If they are doing anything illegal, there are already indecency laws in the books. They already exist. And this article goes through that. It talks more about it down below. We're not going to read all of it. Well, actually, let's read this part here, because I think this part kind of is important here. The legislation in question targeted adult cabaret performers, including topless dancers, go-go dancers, exotic dancers, strippers, male or female impersonators, and any similar entertainers whose work lawmakers deemed obscene and therefore potentially harmful to children. First-time offenders could have faced nearly a year in prison and up to a $2,500 fine, while any future violations would have been treated as felonies, carrying up to 6 years behind bars. Tennessee's Republican Governor Bill Lee signed the bill into law in March. On the same day, he signed legislation banning most gender-affirming care for transgender people. At the time, the ACLU of Tennessee was quick to point out that drag performers are not inherently obscene, which is absolutely true. So the law did not necessarily outlaw them wholesale. And on April 1st, hours before the drag ban was supposed to go into effect, Parker temporarily blocked it, saying the state has not shown a compelling government interest for why it should control drag shows so strictly. I don't know how many more times it has to happen before people get it through their heads that this kind of stuff is protected under free speech. These are free speech issues. You cannot pick out a portion of the community and go, free speech for me, but not for thee. That does not work. Robert here says, I find it ridiculous that these people are actively trying to ensure unconstitutional laws to discriminate, but hold on to the Constitution as tightly when it affects them. When it's the 2A, it's almost like sacrilege. When it's the Second Amendment, you can't even discuss any sort of regulations on that because they go, Second Amendment, bam, done. But First Amendment, they want to talk about nuance. And they want to have discussions about this, that, and the other. It's all hypocritical. It's hypocritical. The same people pushing these particular types of laws, these types of bills, are the same people who adamantly defend 2A. And if you want to do that, that's your prerogative. But you can't also cherry pick parts of the Constitution. They apply to everyone. Everybody that lives in this country, that is a citizen of this country, gets the same rights under the Constitution. And it's sad that we have to continue to go to court to prove that. It's sad that we have to continue to fight for things that should just be a given to people. The rights that exist in the Constitution should be for everyone, and we shouldn't have to constantly fight and argue about who gets access to them and who doesn't. So this is good news. And I hope we continue with this good news. You know, basically, again, this is what I've been talking about for quite a while. Drag bans are unconstitutional. No one cares about the First Amendment when they, not when they don't want to see or hear what it has to say. These discriminatory laws and bills are bullshit. They know it, we know it, and it seems the government knows it as well. So there you go. There you go. All right, this is one of the stories that kind of came across my screen that I thought was quite interesting. And it was about Garth Brooks. About Garth Brooks. And, Garth Brooks has always been progressive. He did a duet with George Michael. It's one of my favorites. So yeah, I think it's weird that people are so hyper focused on this stuff with Garth Brooks, being surprised at his stance on this, because he's always been someone that has supported diversity and inclusivity. I can't remember a time when he's done something that would make me think otherwise. So in this article here from Entertainment Online, it says Garth Brooks on why he decided to speak out about inclusivity amid transphobic hate. And it says here that Garth Brooks has always been a champion of all voices in a harmonious world. The singer explained it to ET on Thursday why the need for inclusivity is so important as the world moves into the future. ET was with Brooks at the press conference Thursday while announcing a new station on his Sevens radio network called TuneIn Radio, the Big 615, where fans can listen to country music all over the world. After the press conference, Brooks fielded questions and addressed remarks he made during a panel conversation at CMA Fest last week, the Country Music Awards, where he shut down transphobic critics, slamming his decision to sell Bud Light at his newly opened bar. I'm really surprised this Bud Light thing is still happening. I'll be honest. I'm surprised it's still going on. I'm surprised that people still give a shit about Bud Light. It really just doesn't it's such a weird thing to be fixated on. I did a short the other day about Bud Light just to see. I was like, okay, I'll do a 1-minute video to see how it performs. And the numbers were good because I put Bud Light in the title. It's really, really fucking weird. Anyway, says here, I think if you know Garth Brooks, no matter how long you've known him, he's always been inclusive. You're going to need each other. We're going to need each other. Trust me. It's like when we put this team together for the big 615, you're going to need all these different talents. So I think that in regards to diversity, inclusiveness, tongue twister there. I think you find it is our differences that are our greatest strengths, Brooke added. The iconic country singer first spoke out during a panel conversation at Billboard County Live amid the 2023 CMA Fest earlier this month. He touched on the recent backlash aimed at Bud Light after the brand partnered with transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney for an ad campaign earlier this year. It wasn't really an ad campaign. It was a TikTok, like 30-second clip. It wasn't a campaign because it wasn't pushed out to outlets or anything. It was just for TikTok. But I guess maybe they're calling it a campaign because it was done on a social network. I don't know. Anyway, I didn't see a campaign. I saw one viral clip. Answering a question about this Friends in Low Places bar and honky tonk, which is expected to open in the near future in Nashville's South Broadway district, Brooks confirmed that he has full intentions of keeping Bud Light stocked behind his bar. I know this sounds corny. I want it to be the Chick-fil-A of honky tonks. I want it to be a place where you feel safe in. I want it to be a place where you feel like there are manners and people like one another. And yes, we're going to serve every brand of beer. We just are. It's not our decision to make. Our thing is this. If you are let into this house, love one another. If you're an asshole, there are plenty of other places on Lower Broadway. So he's basically saying, I'm not buying into all this culture war stuff. We really need each other to make things work. And this is based Garth Brooks. And this is really good news because a lot of times people tell me, they're like, oh, Eric, when you talk about conservatives, you forget that there's not all conservatives believe these things. Not all conservatives necessarily do this XYZ. There are people out there that are saying and doing things that, go against the grain. But so rarely do you see somebody in a space that is dominated by conservative values come out and say something like this. And so I appreciate this quite a lot. I think this is great. This is, again, good news. And I wish him nothing but the best. If I'm ever in that area, I DJ all around the country. If I'm ever in that area, I'll definitely stop in and patron the bar and see what it's all about, considering it's supposed to be a really big deal. Yeah, I mean, I think this is great. But if you're watching this on playback, I'm curious what you folks think about it. So let me know in the comments, how do you feel about these statements made by Garth Brooks? Do you agree or disagree with him? And if you're a country music fan, does this change your opinion of him? We'll have to wait and see. What do we got next? Oh, this is an interesting one here. We're not going to read this whole article, but I saw this over here. This is a Washington Times. Gays are killing Christianity. LGBTQI plus agenda splitting churches. This is quite a long article. We're not going to read the whole thing. It's a lot. You can continue reading here. It's a lot. Basically what the article goes over, and I'm going to paraphrase some of it here. And, if you folks want to check it out and go read it, it is available. There seems to be a big split when it comes to Christianity and the LGBTQIA plus gay people. And I'm not necessarily a Christian, but I grew up in a Christian household. I have a lot of Christian family members. I went to churches when I was younger. I was a big part of the ministry before I had a situation. This is probably a good place to talk about this since we're here. And I don't think I've talked about it on this channel. So I was somebody that went to church like 3 times a week. I went on Sundays, Wednesdays, and then I did an additional day in the week if we had some sort of event going on or something like that. And at this time, it was a Presbyterian church, was the first church I went to. And my grandfather, who was unable to attend church for a few weeks, was effectively told that he was not welcome at the church anymore unless he was going to be there more often. And so he said, you know what, fuck this. And he didn't go back to church. And so at that point, as a kid, I was like, oh, I really didn't want to be there because I went with my grandparents quite often. My grandmother was very much involved with the church in that way. I just decided it wasn't for me. I didn't want to go to that church anymore after my grandfather was asked not to return. I felt like that was a bit much. So I said, you know what? I'm not going to go back. I'm not going to go back to that church. Fast forward a couple years, I started going to a Methodist church with some family friends. And I was there for a couple years. And I was gifted by some people in the congregation some jewelry My ears were pierced, and they knew I had pierced ears, but I didn't wear any jewelry to church because I didn't have anything that I thought was, I guess, appropriate for church. I didn't want to wear like hoops and spikes and stuff like that. So they got me crosses. They got me some cross earrings, gold crosses. I'm not big on gold, not a big fan of gold jewelry, but they got me gold crosses, and I thought, they got it for me, so I'll wear it. So I wore it to church a couple times, and I guess the earrings, me being a guy, set off some congregation members, and they decided to complain to the higher ups that they thought me wearing earrings to church was confusing to other people in my age group. And I thought, okay, that's weird. These were gifts from people in the same church. So being that they were gifts from people in the same church, I thought, well, I mean, what is this all about? Why is this even happening? So I had to sit down with our pastor, and he said in, very certain terms that if I wanted to continue to wear the earrings to church, then I was not going to be welcome back at the church again. And at first I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't wear them. Maybe I should take them out. Maybe I should do what they want me to do. And then I was like, no, that's not a compromise that I want to make. That's not something I feel comfortable doing, to be completely honest. And the more I thought about it over the course of the week, I missed my Wednesday thing at church. I didn't go because I didn't want to take the earrings out for that. The next weekend, when it was time to go back to church, I just decided not to go back. My two experiences with organized religion were both bad. They were both very bad experiences for me. One of them was seeing my grandfather kicked out of church because he was unable to attend due to health reasons. And the other one was because I was told I can't express myself in church. So I don't have any issue with not being a part of organized religion. I just don't. So reading articles like this where they talk about how it's dividing stuff and things like this and that, we have creators here on YouTube. There's a creator named Melanie Mack who I've made a couple videos about. And she is one of the more extreme people when it comes to like religious rhetoric online. If you follow her social media or you've kept up with her for any amount of time, she laughed about a church burning down, but she calls herself a Christian. She laughed about a church burning down, and she's like, but I'm Christian. And I'm like, oh, are you though? I mean, I don't think that's something you celebrate. And she said, oh, it's because they were doing, I guess it was a pride event or something. Still, it's a place of worship. Are you gonna laugh when like somebody like a temple burns down or a mosque burns? Like is it funny to laugh at other people's religions when something happens? Is that where we are with Christianity now? Is that it's just funny to laugh when something happens? Half of my family on my dad's side are extremely religious. They get on Facebook and they post all of this stuff where they're like, God loves you. God reclaims the rainbow. All of these things. And I'm just like, don't you want people to feel welcomed? Isn't that what you want with your religion? Don't you want people to feel like they can come to you and they've got a place there? The gatekeeping in Christianity is really, really fucking weird. It's really weird. It's a religion that wants people to come in, but it's a religion that also makes people feel like they're ostracized. So I don't know. I think it's hilarious. Trixie Mattel made a statement about this, and she said, well, God's not real, but gay people are. And I thought that was hilarious. I'm not going to knock anybody for what they believe in, but the majority of the Christians that I have ran into in my life have been pretty hateful to me and other queer people. Even the family that I was very close to when I was growing up, I felt there was some judgment there about me and me living my true life, because I was out in high school. And so, yeah, It's one of those things. And Robert here chiming in says, I've been in and out of religion in my life as a bi man, not always out. I understand that. I can understand that, Robert. I think, for me, part of the religion part of the struggle for me is that I was told once I got old enough for them to even discuss it, because I don't think sexuality was ever really discussed in the churches that I attended. I don't remember hearing anything from the head of the church, but I do remember hearing it from other people that went to the church, like in conversation, but never from the head of the church. Um, but even though I was out, I don't think it ever came up while I was attending church, but I heard it quite a lot when I was no longer part of church. And I think the earring thing was more of a suppression tactic for being gay, because I think they obviously knew that I was, but they also didn't want me to sort of, I guess, make it known to the rest of the church. So that was kind of a problem for them, I guess. Um, yeah, very weird. Anyway, gays are killing Christianity, but I have this in my notes here. It's really funny that they're not even cleaning up their own backyard. That's kind of what it is at this point. You know, just recently, the Arizona Supreme Court ruled that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints can refuse to answer questions or turn over documents under a state law that exempts religious officials from having to report a child SA if they learn of that crime during a confession setting. So in Arizona, if you are someone who is a religious leader or somebody involved with the religious organization, and you hear of somebody committing SA with children, and they do it in the way that seems like it's a confession of a sin, you don't have to say anything. You don't have to reveal anything, and it can just go on indefinitely. It's really hard for me to even sit down and have a conversation with people in Christianity when they're dealing with shit like that and not addressing it. All of this stuff when it comes to going to schools and blocking a rainbow flag or blocking a trans flag or blocking curriculum that explains that gay people exist, when all of this other shit is happening in their own backyard. How can I seriously have a conversation with people that just are okay with that? Like here on YouTube, there's so many channels that talk about quote unquote protecting the kids, but they never actually go into the official reports of this happening. It's always Minority Report bullshit. It's always some stuff like, well, XYZ could happen if we allow this, but complete crickets on stuff that is actually happening. All of the stuff going on in the Catholic Church. Why are we not why are we not out in front of the Catholic Church picketing the Catholic Church? Why is that not happening? Why is that not a thing? So we're going to picket kids from seeing a rainbow, but we're not going to actually go out and try and stop all of the abuse that's happening within the church. And I'm not talking about a little bit. I'm talking about massive amounts. I've talked about this in videos before. There are so many documented cases of religious men, cisgender, heterosexual men committing SA and in possession of CP. It's every day almost. This is happening. This is confirmed charges or allegations or prosecutions or people being locked up. All of this is happening, and there are literal crickets. This is why I can't even engage in conversations. When people contact me to quote unquote debate with me, when they contact me for that, and I say, I have no interest in debating, it's because we can't even reach a point where the conversation is about what's happening in reality. If your first thing you want to debate me on is about queer issues and how it relates to religion, let's tackle your shit first. let's talk about your shit first, because the shit that's happening on their end is actually happening. It's a real thing. Before you talk to me about fairy tales, how about we address the real shit before we talk about fairy tales? That would be cool. Pizza here says the Bible is against being judgmental. Matthew 7, 1-6, I think is one of the lessons that really age really well. It's a shame that many ignore it. Like I said, I have friends and family members who are Christian, and I never hold any of this against them as an individual person. But day after day, every gay person is responsible for everything that gay people do. If I make a video talking about this subject, the comments are going to be, hateful bullshit directed towards me specifically for something that is either not happening at all or is a issue that the community is already dealing with. But we're seeing the effects of this on individual queer people. This is the only thing I ask. If you're watching this on playback, or if you're here watching and you're not chatting, and you are someone who is a Christian, we need your help. We cannot do this on our own. There are queer Christians out there, and they are trying very hard to sort of change that stigma. There's no killing of Christianity going on. I know this article has a funny title. It's funny, but it's also sad. Queer people deserve love. They deserve respect for just being human beings. There's some other content creators, I think Heel versus Babyface as said that people don't deserve respect. Everybody deserves respect. Every single person you come in contact with deserves basic respect from the beginning until they give you a reason to not provide that respect to them. If you approach everybody thinking that you don't owe them decency and respect, then you're a piece of shit person. If you walk up to somebody and you're like, I'm just going to call them an asshole because fuck them. Really? I'm going to call them a predator or groomer because fuck them. Really? Every single person, unless they give you a reason to think otherwise, deserves basic human respect. Period. And so I think that's something that's been lost in this world. I think the age of the internet has sort of taken that away. Hellsbell says, Christians ignore many things in the Bible and cherry pick what they want so long as if it fits their hateful views. I agree. There's a lot of Christians that do that. Look, like I said, this is not me. When I say Christians, understand there's an asterisk on that because I know that not everyone feels this way. But as a community, I want to see more pushback within the Christian community to sort of prove that we have allies within the church. That's it. That's all I'm asking for. I think they do exist. It's just a matter of them being vocal, being visible, and being present. And the reason why I say this is back in the 90s, after what happened with Matthew Shepard in 1998. If you don't know about Matthew Shepard, you can look that up. I don't have it prepared here because I didn't expect to talk about it. But in 1998, there was a massive hate crime that occurred with the death of Matthew Shepard. It's an awful story. There were vigils all around the country. I remember going to these vigils just to sort of celebrate the life of Matthew Shepard and also show that we as a community are trying to look out for each person that is killed strictly for just being a gay person. We're going to be there for them. We're going to show the communities out there that we stand with the folks in our community. And there was this organization called the Westboro Baptist Church. I don't know if you folks are familiar with them, if you're watching this, if you're here now or you're not. The Westboro Baptist Church is basically not a church. It's like a hate organization that I don't know if they're still as active now. I don't know if they're still as active as now as they were back then, but we were going to vigils for Matthew Shepard, and they would stand outside of these vigils with signs talking about, people going to hell for being gay. You're going to burn in eternity. It's a sin, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. And they did this a lot, and it just got even worse. After that, They would go to different Pride events. We had them at one of my local Pride events where they're standing outside with these signs. And that sends us as a community the impression that there are people out there that are just severely bigoted people. And they don't want gay people to exist. They don't want trans people to exist. They don't want queer people to exist. And it's just an awful thing. But I did see something interesting, kind of shifting gears here a little bit. So this is a video from CM Punk, the wrestler CM Punk. I'm assuming there was some signs being held at one of the events that spoke about trans kids or gay kids. Let's listen, see if we can hear what he has to say. It might be hard to hear. Let's try this. Is there no sound? Is there no sound for everybody, or is it just you? I can restart it if there's no sound. Is it everybody? Can someone please confirm that? No sound. All right, so let's do this. We'll start it over. Okay, hold on. Let's do this. I had sound turned on. I don't know why. Sometimes I think when I use the StreamYard share, if I do it on a multiple tab, it doesn't actually share sound. So let me try this again. And before we start it up, tell me if you can hear this before we go all the way through it.
Is a fraction, but when I watch him go through, he's still.
All right. Can we hear that? Can we get a confirmation? Is there sound there? Just give me a confirmation and we'll move along with the video. You can hear it. Okay, let's try this again. So this is CM Punk. This was at the Collision, and it's 2-part video. They're both very short. So let's give it a listen.
Positive, and he fights when he gets chemo. So me, I hope I trust that. And maybe somebody on the internet in Mom's basement doesn't like me. That's all horse shit. I love each and every single one of you, even the guy who spelled my name wrong on that sign.
Yeah. Guy's annoying.
Also, hey, listen, I didn't know what I was walking into. I was told everybody hates me.
Oh!
And there's a big part of me that said, good, I'm going to make a lot of money. But it didn't feel nice coming out here and feeling the love. This young man's name has told me I saw his sign. I recently... Listen.
Okay, so I think the sign that he's holding up says protect trans youth. Let me go back and look here, see if I can see this.
Listen.
Where's it at?
I recently...
Hold on, what is it? Support LGBTQ plus youth. Okay, so that's the sign he brought up on stage. It says support LGBTQ plus youth. All right.
Listen, I recently reposted something from Pretty Cool Ice Cream. I don't know if you guys were here 2 years ago. I bought y'all ice cream. I would have done it again, but I thought...
Yeah! Oh, boo!
We're coming back soon, don't worry.
Give us a voucher.
Give
us a voucher.
I reposted something from Pretty Cool Ice Cream. There's an ice cream bar that Some of the proceeds when you purchased the bar went to support trans youth.
Wow.
I got a lot of hate for reposting that message. Somebody in particular, don't know who it is, nameless, faceless person on the internet, said, why do you support
All right, so there's another video here. Let's look at it. This is the second half of this.
that trash? And I thought
It cut off. So apparently it says, why do you support that trash? It got cut off there. So let's go here with the rest of this.
that trash. And I thought about it. I thought about replying, but you can't argue with stupid, okay? You just both look stupid. The reason I support trans kids, trans grown-ups, gay, straight, lesbian, whoever, is because I know when I was growing up, I didn't fit in anywhere. But it was because of the clothes I wore, what my hair looked like, the music I listened to. Those are all things I could rectify. I could cut my hair, I could listen to jazz, I don't know what. But to be somebody who's gay, lesbian, especially trans, I don't know what it feels like to be trapped in a body.
Exactly.
That is why I support that. Because I know I didn't fit in anywhere until I found pro wrestling, and all the freaks and geeks in the locker room were just like me. Maybe because they're a little bit psychotic and they couldn't hold on a real job, but that's another story. Support trans kids. Support gay and lesbian rights. I want everybody to be themselves. Just do no harm to everybody else. Thank you.
All right, so that is CM Punk. CM Punk is a wrestler that's been around for a long time. Massive, massive legend. And I bookmarked that because I could not believe what I was hearing. Not only was he saying this at a massive event in front of a massive crowd of people, defending and doubling down on his support, which is what you should do. If you're going to be an ally, you need to understand that being an ally is going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable sometimes. And the reason why that is because when you say you're an ally, you say that I am stepping in to stand in the lines with other people who are marginalized. If being an ally was comfortable, then we would have no problem getting help. We would have no problem getting support. That's why being an ally sometimes is uncomfortable. I have to just thank him for getting on stage in this platform and something that I don't really watch wrestling much anymore. I used to as a kid. I don't really watch it much anymore. But to say this and not only say it, but have the audience cheering him on in the background. That's incredible. And that just has to remind us that all of these loud bigots, homophobes, transphobes that are on here yakking away, making all these comments about it, they do not represent a vast majority of real people in the real world. They just don't. And so by him getting up and doing this and saying, support and protect trans kids, gay kids, lesbians, bisexual, whatever they may be, support them because he knows what it feels like to be different. That means so much. And so I'm so glad that CM Punk did this and stood up and said that. I think that's absolutely amazing. And we have a couple other things here. We're going to go on for about another 10, 12 minutes, something like that. And then if there's questions in the chat or anybody that has anything they want to say, we can address that. But I have a couple more small things to just kind of bring up that I thought was quite interesting. And here's one of them. This is from an account. By the way, I want to point out any account that I share here, anybody that I talk about, whether it be a creator, a person on Twitter, whatever it may be, I don't want people to do anything on my behalf. Like, I don't want people to go and argue and fight and do anything on my behalf. If you want to express your opinion about it, feel free to do that. But don't go over there and say, oh, I saw Eric saying this, so I'm going to come over and like attack someone. Don't do that. I don't want anybody to do that. So I just want to put that out there before we get into these tweets. So this is somebody named Party Trophy 23, Participation Trophy 23, Give Me Trophy, says that's their pronouns, I guess, Give Me Trophy, because pronouns are so hard. Every single one of these men are out and proud. And so he has Elton John, Neil Patrick Harris, and Matt Boomer there. Why can we not have these men as representation of gay men instead of fucking over the top drag queens and walking stereotypes of most offensive gay men on the planet? The vast majority of gay men are just men who happen to like other men. I cannot tell you how fucking stupid this is and the internalized homophobia that comes from comments like this. The vast majority of gay men who just are just men who happen to like other men. Elton John, the closest thing to a drag queen there is when it comes to cisgender men, who has worn frock after frock after frock, who was doing androgyny and over the top, looks and things back in the 70s and 80s. This is just a man who happens to like other men. Neil Patrick Harris has actually done drag. He's done drag before. He's on a TV show called Drag Me to Dinner. That's the name of the show that he hosts. It's a show about drag artists. And Matt's just Matt. Like he's also very much out and proud and does whatever he wants to do. These guys don't represent the asshole mentality of this internalized homophobia. Also, stereotypes are presented on the gay community by heteronormative standards. If you live your life to appease or placate to heteronormity when you're a queer person, then you are part of the problem. No one's saying you can't do what you want to do, but to attack your own community for being expressive and for showing culture within the gay community of things you don't like doing is internalized homophobia. I've seen these stupid memes where they're like, I don't like to shop. I don't like drag. I don't wear makeup. I'm just a guy that likes other guys. I'm not a stereotype. Do you not realize that you're saying this about your own community? You're probably saying it about someone who you're friends with. You're saying that your friends are a stereotype, that your friends are a cliche. This is one of the dumbest, most dog shit takes ever. I'm so tired of seeing this because it just doesn't make any sense to me that you would pick 3 guys, 2 of them who have done drag, basically, 2 of them who are very androgynous and don't fit into the heteronormative sets of masculinity, and say, these are my representations for me. It's just, it's really stupid. Yes, CM Punk is a gangsta. Love him forever now. I know, it's great. It's great. I'm not even a big fan of wrestling. Like, this isn't going to make me start watching wrestling or anything, but I definitely have a different opinion of him after that. Kind of teared you up knowing as much I can be close to a person with gender dysphoria and is really powerful. We need what he did. We need more of him around. I agree. Yeah. Why can't no one understand each letter of LGBTQI plus are not a monolith? Well, what I don't understand is this whole division that's being built between LGB, but not the T and the letters or whatever. Like, it's such a privileged place for gay men to go, hey, we kind of have it okay at the moment, right? So now we're just going to cut off the end of the train, split it right in half with everybody else that's in the train with us. That's so dumb. Please don't be one of those people. And for the future, anybody that watches, please don't be one of those people, LGB without the T. Like, don't do that. It's just, it's not a good place to be in. This is another one I saw that I thought was quite interesting, and I bookmarked it. This is from Joey Manarino, who I see making dumb statements all the time. I thought Bud Light was bad, but Barefoot is taking it to the next level. They have pronouns on their bottles now, and they didn't stop at the usual. They even added Z-Zim. I think it's time to boycott this crap immediately. And we already know what the secret ingredient is. And he's one of these people that always uses some sort of like reference to semen. I'm not even gonna. He's just disgusting. If you've ever seen his stuff on Twitter, it's pretty much that's what he does all the time. Anyway, look, it's Pride Month. Rainbow capitalism is a thing. Some of these companies actually believe in what they're doing and some don't. I think we know, at least in this world, that these bottles don't have genders. So it's done for representation, right? But let's talk about pronouns for a second, right? So people get upset about pronouns, and I think it's quite weird, honestly, that people get upset by pronouns because they say they don't want to use people's pronouns. Well, my pronouns are he, him, but you can call me whatever you want. I'm not a stickler on it. I'm a Gen Xer, and I have heard just about everything you can possibly hear when it comes to like things being said. You can call me he, she, they, whatever. I don't particularly care. But if I would express an interest to people or something that I feel for myself, I would say, hey, I prefer he, him. Which most people would go, yeah, that makes sense, right? I'm gonna call you he, him because to me, you're a man. So what makes that any different? Like you're using my quote unquote preferred pronouns in that regard. Wouldn't you just call me she, her, or they, them if you don't want to respect pronouns? That's the weird thing about that. Like I'm like, if you don't want to use people's pronouns, then why would you even use the correct pronouns? If you're just against pronouns altogether. You is a pronoun. You're like all these things express pronouns. Like I don't understand. Also, it's kind of weird. We have grown up in a world where things have been gendered for a long time. Right? Things have been gendered for a very, very long time. Hey Chandler, how are you doing? There are shampoos that are gendered. There are body washes that are gendered. There's soap that is gendered. There's razors that are gendered. The entire clothing world for the longest time has been gendered. Why is this a problem for these people now? Why is this an issue now? Why is it now when pronouns and genders are put on products, now it's a problem? We grew up in a gendered world. And no one had an issue with it then. But now all of a sudden, genders and pronouns are a problem. If you didn't care about gender and pronoun shit, you would be boycotting gendered things in general. Like take just for her, just for him off of boxes. Take gender categories out of clothing in stores. Why is it a pronoun is a problem, but gender separation isn't? These objects don't have genders. They get assigned genders. This bottle with genders being stuck on the front of it proves that gender constructs are what they are. If I can say a bottle is they, them, then that tells you that those types of things are just constructs. Clothing, a shirt that both a man, a woman, or a non-binary person could wear is gendered in gendered categories in stores. So why is this a problem? I saw a clip. I think it was a clip of who was it now? Now I'm having a brain fart here. One of the pundits, one of the bobblehead bigots was saying, I think it was Charlie Kirk, was it? Maybe if somebody in the chat remembers seeing this, let me know. Who said that they look in their refrigerator and they have to decide whether something is woke or not. Is this ketchup woke? Is this mayonnaise woke? Is this beer company woke? Like this is the world that they live in, where they literally think about that when they open the refrigerator. Are you fucking kidding me? They think about whether products are woke when they open their refrigerator. Can you imagine living your life that way? Oh, was it Charlie Kirk? Yeah. It must be a miserable fucking existence to go through life looking at things like this and thinking this is a problem. And I'm still waiting for companies to go out of business. Get woke, go broke insinuates that they go broke, aka their business goes under. I'm still waiting for one of these go broke businesses to actually go out of business. I think Target's still open. I think if I go to the Target website, you can probably still order Pride stuff from their website. I think Walmart's still open. I think I can still buy Bud Light at the store. Congratulations. Gay people have been not buying chicken from Chick-fil-A for years and they're still doing fine. Let's read some of the comments here. Sky Queen. Remember, all the movements get hijacked eventually. Most of the world, even the best ones, unless you properly gatekeep or regulate it. And then they go on to say, my friend that lives in South Africa is gay with partner and open about it. They don't care, but it's not about movement. It's about perception. And activists make movement look bad. Most normal people don't care. The average people don't. Look, I am under the belief that the average people don't care. It's the polarizing people that sort of swoop in and push narrative. And that's what we're seeing right now. That's what we're seeing right now. That's what's happening. That's why so many of these things around the country are in the situation they're in. But as we said earlier, if you were here earlier, in the United States, all of these ridiculous restrictions are unconstitutional. They're getting pushed down in courts. They're getting shot down in houses. They're basically getting shut down completely in bills. These things are unconstitutional. Sorry to hear this, Chandler. Sorry to hear that. Let's see here. Beasta says, my native tongue doesn't have gender pronouns. It's the weirdest thing to me. Why is it hard to use a preferred pronoun for someone? Because they don't. Look, it all boils back down to what I was talking about earlier. It's about respect. The people don't actively care about pronouns. No, they don't care about that stuff. They don't care about gender. They don't care about any of those things. They want the right to be as disrespectful and hateful and negative as they can possibly be without any repercussions. They don't want to be held accountable for being garbage people. That's really all it is. That's what it boils down to. And when it comes to like these bills and these laws, it comes down to control. It comes down to oppression. They want control of people. This is why when the community speaks out and says it will not stop with trans people, it will not stop with drag queens. Once they have controlled a population, the next thing to do is control the next level of that population, and then control the next level, then control the next level, until a very small portion of people are in complete control. That's what it is. It's going to be really difficult, especially in the United States, obviously, because of the way our government is set up. Thank goodness. But they're still trying to do it. This is why they had to resort to things like domestic terrorism and things when it comes to Target and places like that, calling in threats and doing things like that, breaking and destroying property, because the only control they have is being a complete and utter nuisance to society. They're not going to win in courts. They're not going to win in courts. There may be isolated incidents in places where things get pushed through, but overall, they're not going to win. This is the power they have to get on social media, because Elon is a dumbass that allows them to do whatever the fuck they want, to get on social media and create problems out of nothing. I've talked about this in another video. This is called astroturfing. This is called astroturfing. Basically, creating a bunch of small problems, creating problems, things that don't exist, and putting the foundation down for it, aka the astroturf for it, so that you have that as a platform. You basically build a platform off of things that you have said are a problem. And then you sell people a solution. That is the grift. It's problem-centric selling. It's problem-centric. Basically, you say, here's the problem, I'm providing the solution. That is why it's a grift. It is dishonest selling. And we've been saying this for a long time. A lot of people engage in this. This is not a practice that is considered to be unheard of. Like, it's been going on for a very long time. And typically, I don't have an issue. If you want to say McDonald's sells bad burgers and I'm selling the better burger, that's fine. I don't think that's a really big deal. But if you want to create lies about an entire community, a marginalized community, and say that they're doing things that they're not actually doing to try and sell some of your products, that is fucking disgusting. That's disgusting. It just is. I'm sorry. Let's see here. A couple more comments. Yeah, so here's the other thing. If a man wants to wear pink, they can. Because guess what? Gender is a construct. If gender was unbreakable and pink was 100% a girl's color, then it would be physically impossible to wear pink. But it's not. Because that's not real. Chandler says, there's so many things in the fridge, it would be hard to keep up with that. Either way, it's pretty pointless. Look, okay, let me clear this up. I am totally on board with you as an individual deciding that you don't want to support something for whatever reason. If you don't want to go buy from Pizza Hut because they use a color that you don't like on their boxes, you're totally okay with that. You know what I mean? It's totally good. I think it's completely different when you create hate rhetoric to boycott something. Because he could go, hey, I don't want to buy this because I don't necessarily want to associate or support anything from the queer people or queer movements. Inherently, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I don't really have an issue with that. Like, if you don't want to buy it because that's what you personally believe, I don't care. It's when you create this movement and try to convince people that there's something happening that's not happening. And we know this guy, Joey, he's been doing it for a while. You have a large platform, it becomes a responsibility issue at that point. Yeah, I wouldn't want to do that anyway. LOL says it's about respecting other people's pronouns. They should regardless, but they don't care. I wouldn't go that far. Yeah. Sky Queen says here, modern politics about tribalism was pushed this way. It's been this way for a while, since 2013 or before. Look, I am someone who would love to see like an option for third party plus candidates in the United States. But in reality, my country is designed around a two-party system. Right now, I don't think there's any way for an independent person to break out of that. So every person who is in a sort of centrist position has to align with one of the major parties if they want a shot at getting elected. That's just the way it is. I know people don't want to believe that. Oh, if just enough people did this, if just enough people did that, there's not enough people to do that. You would have to convince a third of the country to actually feel that way or think that way about something and then put it into action. Because words don't mean anything at the end of the day. Action means something. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. See you later, LOL. Let's see here. Both sides do it, and the left decided to use narrative, then change terms, and there's articles about them. Unfortunately, most don't see what the think tanks put forwards. I disagree with both sides do it in regards to human rights. I think it's a very obvious difference in the way progressives deal with human rights versus conservatives. Progressives aren't actively trying to take away rights for people. So I think it's a very different scenario. And for me, I vote primarily on social issues. So human rights are a very important thing for me as a voter. So when I go to vote for someone, I look at what their stances are on social issues first. It is the primary thing that I vote on. I know not everybody votes that way, but I know a vast majority of people do believe social issues are the most important thing. Because what good are the bigger issues for me as an individual if I'm losing rights, right? If I don't have the right to marry someone, or I don't have the right to go into a restaurant or a store or something, or I don't have the right to access to healthcare, things like that, based on social status, then nothing else matters, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good things are. Oh, great, infrastructure is better, but I don't have the right to marry the person I love. Like that's the way I look at it. So for me, social issues are a big thing. I think it's a very clear thing here that the conservative parties in the United States are looking to take away rights from individuals within the United States. So I don't think it's fair to say both sides do that. You're right, though. I think both parties have corruption in them. I think that both parties have issues, especially at the top end. But at the end of the day, in this country, I'm going to vote for the party that is the most progressive on social issues. And for me, that's been by far more progressives. You say here, but the beauty of the US, you can have free speech platforms that allow it. You can even privatize it. They can own it. Twitter was a left-wing platform. Even FBI groups were there. But that's the thing is if you argue that now, it's a right-wing platform because it's ran by someone who actively promotes that kind of stuff. You know, I think Twitter is a loss at this point. I think Twitter's a loss. I think it's RIP the dream with Twitter, to be completely honest. Let's see here. Hell's Bells says we have a similar system, even though we have more parties that are known. It's generally a fight between red and blue for us in the UK too, because that's the easiest way to control it. You know what I mean? Hell's Bells. That's the easiest way to kind of pivot for people, like putting money, because let's be honest, running for office is a money-making platform. Like a lot of people running for office, in order to even get into the debates, like the major debates here in the United States, you have to have a certain amount of money that allows you to get to that level to be in those debates. And let's be honest, the more outside of the box parties, whether independent, you know, libertarian, whatever it may be, Green Party, whatever you may be, just don't have the funds to do it because major donors aren't going to back people that just don't have a shot in getting into the major debates. That's the reality of it. I wish there was a way to fix it, but it doesn't seem to be anything we can do currently. Chandler says, yeah, try to be careful what I buy. Of course, Chick-fil-A is definitely not on my to buy from list. Yeah, I mean, of course, individual people can make a decision on what they don't want to purchase. I'm never going to tell someone they have to buy, purchase, or support something they don't want to support. But I may argue for the reasoning behind it, especially if it hurts marginalized groups. And so that's kind of where I am on that stance. We have one more thing here. I forget what this other one is here. Right here. Here it is. Yes, this right here. So this was a quote tweet here from Trekkie Bill. Conservatives, when did hashtag Star Trek get all woke and political? Star Trek in 1989, and they showed a picture. And then Jesse Gender here says Star Trek in 1966. And this is Kirk here. Well, there's one thing you can be sure of, mister. Leave any bigotry in your quarters. There's no room for it on the bridge. From Balance of Terror. So, yeah. I thought this was an interesting share. There's lots of them. If you're keeping up with the Phantom Initiative channel, from all the folks over there, which by the way, if you are not following Fandom Initiative or any of the Fandom Initiative members, which would include Turf Nation, Organized Chaos, and Actual Fandom, please go check those guys out and give them a follow, give them some support. I'm going to try and work on some graphics and artwork here that will also promote some of the content that I'm doing over there. They put together a great video of me or from the Phantom Initiative channel, better than the content I make over here. So shout out to Actual Fandom team for putting that together. It was fantastic. I was kind of shocked at the quality of it here. And we're going to stop here. We're about 10 minutes over runtime, but we've had some interesting conversations here. We got one more comment. This is going to be a 5-minute warning. We're doing a 5-minute warning before I actually head out here and close down the stream. But we have Sky Queen here. Tribalism divides by subgroups for them to pander to. All groups, e.g. like BIPOC, DOMA was the main law of the land, but civil unions have been a thing for years. This is why Trump was trying to fix Section 230. Platforms have to be public, and companies have done this for years. Silicon Valley has been progressive, or left-wing platforms have to be open. I don't necessarily agree with all of that. The reason why is I think people who are spouting propaganda and fascism don't need to be respected on platforms. This idea of tolerance goes away when the intolerant introduce ways to take away things from people. I made this comparison on one of the streams we did in the last couple of weeks for the Phantom Initiative. And I said, there's this paradox of tolerance and intolerance. And what that is like, if I'm sitting in a room as a gay person and the person in front of me is someone who is a fascist or believes that gay people should not be alive. What happens if I respect that and tolerate that? What would happen if I, as a gay person, looked across the room at a person who thinks that gay people should all be unalived? What happens if I tolerate that person as a gay person? What would happen to me? I wouldn't exist anymore. So there is a level of communication where you have to go, that kind of rhetoric should not be platformed. And if you disagree with me on that my existence is negotiable, then we have an issue. That's one of the reasons I don't want to debate bro people that don't think gay people should exist. I'm not going to sit here and try and rationalize whether I, as a human being, deserve to exist. I'm not going to have a rational conversation about that. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't benefit me. It doesn't benefit anybody but the person who is pushing ideology that erases gay people. That's the only person that benefits from that conversation. Do we agree or disagree on that? I'm just curious. If you're watching this on playback, I am curious because I know a vast majority of people are going to probably not agree with that. But I think if we're talking about people who are wishing for the eradication of an entire community of people, there is no benefit to platforming that. Zero benefit to that. 100%. Because as much as I dislike some of the things that Christians say about gay people, I don't think that they should be disbanded. I don't think that Christians shouldn't be allowed to be Christian. So if the core of your argument starts at that position, then we have nothing to debate. There's nothing to argue about at that point. Robert Blake says, hell yeah. Chandler says, people's existence shouldn't be a debate, period. But that's it. That's what it boils down to at the end of the day. What do you think it means to a trans person when you hear people saying trans people don't exist? What do you think that means to them? Think about that for a second. Think about that if you heard someone being given a platform where they would say something like, Christians shouldn't exist. White people shouldn't exist. How would you feel about that if you were on the other side of that? And then there's people actively trying to get legislation passed so that you cannot worship your religion, that you can't do things if you're a white person. How would you feel about those things? I'm going to guess you wouldn't feel good about them. Just going to take a guess that wouldn't be good for you. So when people are saying trans people don't exist and they keep pushing that rhetoric, that in itself is wrong. And we shouldn't tolerate that. That's not an issue of being tolerant. You are actively saying that a group of people do not or should not exist. It's not right. Hellsbell says empathy is not something that people who think like that are capable of, which is exactly why I don't engage with them. Like, one of the things people say, like, I have a couple of Twitter accounts that love to repost my content. And one thing they want to say is, oh, Eric is afraid to debate someone. You don't get to be a 40-something-year-old gay man in this world doing what I'm doing on this platform for being afraid of people. That's not how that works. You don't get to where I am by being afraid of people. I lived through the AIDS crisis. I watched so many of my friends between the years of like the early 90s to the late 90s die because the government just decided they weren't going to do shit about people who have AIDS. I lived through that. I watched so many of my friends go away during that time. Generation X, the gay generation, lesbians, trans people of this generation, there's a big chunk of us missing because of that, because the government decided they weren't going to help with the problem. You don't get to where I am by being afraid of people. I face down people at Matthew Shepard vigils Sometimes ended up hurt, sometimes didn't. You don't put yourself in that position. I went and protested for marriage equality in my state. I knew the two of the men in that they were going against the state for that. In that case, I went and watched people yell and scream and fight with me for marriage equality in my state. You don't get that way with being afraid. I am not afraid of any bobblehead bigot on YouTube. They should actually be happy that I don't want to debate them. That's the reality. They should be happy that I have no desire to do it because they are so ignorant on queer issues. They are so ignorant that I would drag them on every bit of history, of every bit of ignorant thing they say about queer people, that it would be embarrassing for them. And that's why whenever these people come to my channel and clip my videos and put me all over the internet, always talk about how funny I look. Oh, look, his beard is a different color. Oh, how many glasses does he have? All these other superficial, dumb things that I don't care about because they don't want to actually address what I'm saying because I am right. And they're afraid of that. It is what it is. WV Spartan says, as a Christian, you be you. Everyone is loved in God's eyes, period. Well, thank you, Spartan. See, it's not difficult for someone to actually express values of being a Christian as a Christian. It's not that difficult. I wish more people felt like this, or at least expressed it openly. I think the world would be a much better place if that were the case, to be completely honest. All right, here's the deal. I am trying to reach 500 subscribers so I can set up memberships on this channel, so I can start making some diversified content over here. Because as of right now, this channel, you have to be at 500 subscribers to get to that point. So if you're someone who's on the fence about subscribing to my channel and you're watching this on playback or you're watching right now, please consider subscribing. I want to try and do this podcast twice a month until I get enough subscribers to be able to pump it up to like once a week. If I can get to 500 subscribers, I will start making this a weekly podcast. As of right now, it's going to be a bi-weekly podcast. So we'll see if we get there or not. If you enjoyed this content, I know it was a little rough because it was the first time I've done this particular stream. But if you enjoyed this, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Check me out on Twitter at DJ Eric as long as I'm there, because I may not be there much longer if they start restricting even more stuff. We'll see. Twitch, Eric's Reloaded. And here on YouTube also, I have my main channel, which is Eric's Reloaded, where it focuses on geek content. Check that out. But yeah, other than that, thank you guys so much for being here. I do appreciate everybody hanging out and having a conversation and being civil. We didn't have a lot of issues in the chat today, which I think is great. I may be setting up mods if things get to be a little bit worse later on. We'll see. Matter of fact, let's do a couple of mods now. I know Growly Bear, you're amazing. And Robert, I'm going to make you a mod today as well. I'll add some more mods as time goes on. But there we go. We got a couple mods now. There's a couple other people I'm keeping an eye on. I know Hell's Bells. If you're here next time, I'll probably give you a mod status. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how many mods we need. But I do appreciate it. All right, that's pretty much it. I am out of here. Everyone, have a great night. If you're checking me out later, I'll be on Twitch at Eric's Reloaded. Probably joined by Paigey. If you're familiar with Paigey, we'll be talking about geek topics over there. Probably the Flash movie, things like that and stuff. So we'll be live over on Twitch later. So make sure you join us there. Again, if you enjoyed the stream or you have any comments or suggestions, leave them down below. If you want to talk shit about me, just be known that I will talk shit back to you because I'm not above that shit. That's it. I'm out of here. Take care, everybody.